Today's very special video, I will be showing you guys a recap of Squid Game Season 1. So it mostly starts off with Gi-hun is the main character. He is in his middle 40s or early 40s. And he has really bad financial debt and he relies on his mother for money. It is his daughter's birthday. And his mom gave him money to take her to a fancy dinner, but he gambles it on a horse race. He surprisingly wins 10k yen, or won, I can't remember, from it. He rushes to an arcade, but he gets caught by loan sharks and he runs, but he gets bumped into a girl who pickpockets him and takes his money. The loan sharks catch up to him and then threaten to take his liver, tongue, and eyes. If he does not give him the 4 billion won or yen by next month, they will take his liver, tongue, and eyes. He's at a subway station now, and a salesman comes up and asks to play a game of dachi. If he wins, he gets 100,000 won or yen. I'm pretty sure it's won. If he loses, he gets just slapped in the face. Ji-hun ends up winning. The salesman gives him a business card with a number. He calls the number, and he's told to meet up at a location with a time. When he arrives, he gets in a car and gets knocked out by gas. He is now at the Squid Game Island. He gets into the red light, green light game, and a lot of people end up dying. Ji-hun almost died, but Ali Abdul catches him just in the nick of time for him to get to the other side. Now, they're back in the room. They're all very scared because they've just witnessed half the people in the games dying, which is equivalent to around 200. So now, they're all like, we want to leave, please. But then, this guy named Sang-woo, he graduated from business school. The top school in all of wherever it is that they live in. I'm pretty sure it's Japan or China, Asia maybe. And, yeah, he was the top of his class in business school, and he made to read the consent form that he had to sign in order to play the games. And it said in clause form 3, if the majority players agree to end the game must end. And that's how the game ended. Then they all got tied up, knocked out, and then they got thrown out on the nearest town where they lived. Ji-hun quickly goes into a police department and reports about it. Of course, they don't believe him because the only real evidence he had was a business card with a number on it that didn't work anymore. Sang-woo actually ended up with Ali Abdul, and he gave him a phone and money for the bus. Eventually, Ji-hun finds out that his mom has diabetes in her foot and she might have to get it amputated, but they don't have enough money, so she might die. So now, he's like, alright man, I wish I didn't quit the games. But then he gets another business card and he decides to join again. Now the game is the cookie game, or Dalgona. And what he decides to do since there's only 2 minutes left on the clock, he decides his sweat drips on the cookie, and he realizes that it makes the cookie a very small, but still massively helpable, because the cookie with water or spit will dissolve better, and that also helped player 001 or O.L. Nam. We'll get on him later. He's pretty important. Then the next game is Tug of War. 10 players with 10 teams. One player ends up not getting on a team, but she's not killed because of one of the game's rules. And before we start the recap of Tug of War, this got on to a detective called Junho. He hears about the report that Jihan made before he entered the game the second time, and he decides to follow the car that he was on because he spied on Jihan. Then the car eventually leads onto a dock, which goes on a ship. Then he gets out of the car, he gets back in the car, in the passenger seats, and he pretends to be one of the players. And then he takes out the guard, takes his suit on, and then throws the body overboard. Now he is disguised as a pink guard. Then, once he arrives on the island, he still has his phone, and he's taking pictures, notes, and videos about everything he can capture about the games. He also finds out that one of the players is a really good doctor, and the guard that he took sells organs of the dead bodies, and he had the doctor help him, and his other people that also sold organs with the doctor. And then eventually, the doctor gets caught and killed, along with the other guards, besides Junho, because he escaped. Now everyone's going crazy looking for him. On to Tug of War. 10 players with 10 teams. Jihan ends up with Sangwoo, O.L. Nam, Ali Abdul, and player 67, Se Biak. And they learn a tactic from the old man, or O.L. Nam, player 001, that if they lean back and then jolt up while running a bit, the players will fall over, which gives them an advantage, because, falling over is not really the best thing to do in Tug of War. So they end up winning. The next game is Marbles. This is probably one of the most tragic games that happened in all of the series. And at this time, Junho, the detective, ends up with enough stuff. He puts his phone in a bag, sealed up, and he takes a scuba diving gear and goes to the nearest island. Marbles. 50% of the players will die in this. There's teams of 2. It is unclear how many teams of 2 there is. Jihan ends up going with his friend O.L. Nam. We also learn before red light, green light that he has a brain tumor. O.L. Nam actually, the place that Marbles takes place reminds him a lot of his childhood. And when he had a kid, and he took care of it, and it was almost a replica of a house. Near perfect replica, down to the right pond in the front yard. Sangwoo ends up going with Ali Abdul, which he tricks by saying something along the lines of, some people will not play the games. So if we just don't play, the guards will have to do something with the remaining players. So if we just count off how many players there are by the end, we might have a chance of both surviving, since one of them will end up dying with a game of their choice. But Sung-woo actually betrays Ali into giving him rocks and Sang-woo getting all the marbles. In the game that they were playing, whoever had the most marbles at the end wins. So, man, this one was sad. So, Ali ends up dying. Very sadly. Mind you, that this was one of the most caring players. And he just got betrayed. His last words were, Sang-woo, I've got to decide Sang-woo. Very, very tragic. Ji-hun actually ends up winning, and player 001 dies. Our friend Sabiak, player 67, goes with a friend whose parents died and she has nothing. That is why she wanted to enter the games. And there's 16 players left, and we're now onto the game called Glass Bridge. With a 29% survival rate. There's 16 players, with the main players being Sabiok, Ji-hun, and Sang-woo, along with player 101, the main protagonist, besides the people that created the games. And actually, once a couple players die and fall to their death, one of them, player 001 in fact, ends up stopping, so he won't go until someone else goes, because he does not want the 50-50 chance of survival. But eventually, his ex-girlfriend, it's actually like crazy confusing, sort of pushes him and her off. So it's sort of a weird sacrifice, I guess. And then there's actually a person that made glass, along with the other three remaining players, Sabiok, Sang-woo, and Ji-hun. He can tell which tempered glass is, where you'll fall immediately, between real glass, where you won't fall. And eventually, there's one thing left, and 10 seconds left out of the 15 minutes. And Sang-woo actually ends up pushing him off in order for survival. Now, the final three players are Sabiok, Sang-woo, and Ji-hun. They all end up going to a fancy dinner inside of the games as a congratulations for winning. They have a really nice steak dinner along with these new customized suit thingies. But they all keep their knife that they use to cut their steak. And Sang-woo actually ends up killing Sabiok because he knew that Ji-hun and Sabiok would agree to end the game, and that was the remaining players in the majority in order to quit the games, and no one would get money, and it would go to the dead player's family. And then they go into the last game called Squid Game with a 50% chance of survival. No matter what you do, you will have a very, very small chance of survival in this game. It is called Squid Game, ironically with the name of the TV show. The 6th round going against Jihan and Sang-woo. Jihan ends up winning because Sang-woo realized, well, he's already there. I've already sacrificed so much and he has so much to live for. All I have to live for is my potential business that I haven't even started. And I'll still be in a lot of debt. And it'll take me a long, long time to clear up all my problems. But all he has to do is pay 4 billion won and help his daughter in a court case so his daughter doesn't go to America. And he'll never see her again. He has a daughter. He's a dad. He has so much more to live for. And then, with his knife still in hand, he ends up killing himself. Which is very traumatic because Jihan actually wanted to end the games, but then Sang-woo killed himself in a sacrifice of friendship because they actually known each other since childhood. So now, Jihan actually won. But he is now talking to the front man, which is like the second leader for the games behind the actual host. There's a lot towards the leader, because actually during the glass bridge game, the leader, the front man, actually caught Jun-ho, and then he took off his mask, revealing that he is Jun-ho's brother, In-ho. And then he shot him off of the cliff, nearly killing him. Or did he? We'll get onto that in a second. Then, Jihan ends up living exactly like he did because he has now survivor's guilt. Which leads him to all he really did with his money is pay off his debts and live exactly how he was, drinking but no gambling. Then the host of the game brings him flowers. No, he recruits a person like the salesman, but in flowers. The flower salesman gives him a card with one of the flowers, telling him to meet at this skyscraper thing. And he actually learns that 001 OL Nam is actually the host of the games. And he says that rich people get so bored because they have nothing to do. Because they're so rich, or something like that. And then they see a homeless guy that's in the really bad cold weather outside, and he's just passed out, and they make a bet. One last game, like, sort of. If it's just like a game, not really a bet, really, but they bet if Jihan wins, how he will win if someone helps the homeless person, and OO Nam will win if no one helps the homeless person. But eventually, the homeless person actually gets help, just in time for OL Nam to die. So now, since he's more recovered because of the help of OL Nam, he realizes that I'm not gonna just sit here wasting my life drinking alcohol or something. So then he decides to buy a ticket to America, then go see his daughter. But then while he's going there, he takes a subway station, and he sees the same salesman from the very beginning that was playing Dachi with him, but he's playing Dachi with another person. He's there nearly in the nick of time to see the salesman go on the train with the closed door, and the future player, there while holding the business card in hand. Jihan decides to take it and tell him to never mess with this stuff. And then he decides to call the number, and the voice tells him players 456. Since Jihan was player 456, you should get on that plane. But then he doesn't get on the plane, and he decides, man, how am I just gonna sit here, go to my daughter, while 455 people die every single year because of the games? They will all have daughters too. I need to make this one sacrifice so thousands of people don't end up dying. And their family has no idea where they are, so I'm not going to go on the plane, and I'm going to try to save everyone and end the games for once and all. And then the voice tells him, you should have got on that plane, Jihan. With him, dyed hair, and Sabyuk, and he actually adopted Sabyuk's brother, and gave it to Sang-woo's mom, who doesn't have a son no more. And Sabyuk's brother didn't have a family, so it's sort of a win-win. Jihan actually gives the mom of the noose, gives Sabyuk, what am I saying? The script sucks. Yeah, so Jihan gave the lady that is Sang-woo's mom, that adopted Sabyuk's brother, Jihan gives her like $1 billion or something, I don't know. And then he ends up, and then that's where the season ends. The main questions before you watch season 2. Will Jihan end up stopping the games? And is the detective really dead? If you want to find out, check out my latest season 2 video with a surprisingly a lot of views. And after you watch that, you can watch my massive hit, the season 3 trailer. And to anyone that's complaining how it's fake, it's straight from the show. I don't know what you guys are on. It's quite literally straight from the show. So I don't know how it can really be more real. I'm gonna make a whole video about trash talking people with this. And if you want to see that, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And I'm so surprised I actually made this video in time. I only wrote like to the part where Ali catches Jihan in the red light, green light. It's a completely full recap of Season 2 Squid Games. Episode 1 of Squid Games Season 2 starts with Gihan, also known as Player 456, at the airport. The frontman warns that he has nowhere to go and he'll regret this. But 456 does not care. He immediately races off to Seoul, picking up a blade in the process. Turns out there's actually a tracker in the back of his ear explaining how the front man knew he wasn't leaving. Meanwhile, detectives searching for his missing brother, Jun-ho, is actually still alive. Turns out that he was picked off the coastline by boat captain whom he's now befriended and works with to try to track down the island. So far, his search has been futile. Still, we're getting ahead of ourselves here for now. He wakes up in a hospital and faintly whispers his name in the brother of his brother, In-ho. We then cut forward 2 years later where we see Hwang Jun-ho is still working. He's recently left the Major Crimes Division, and unfortunately, all that evidence that he gained was for nothing. His phone is gone, and there's no evidence of the Squid Games, the VIPs, or anything else. If Jun-ho wants to put his brother away, he may need to return to the game once more. Meanwhile, Ji-hun is holding out in a motel. He's paranoid and suffering from bad nightmares after the games. He's desperate to find the recruiter and even has called a gangster called Mr. Kim and his associate Woo Seok scour the subway for him. After 2 years, there has been no sign of the guy. Ji-hun, 456, is not giving up and believes that they need to expand their search. He wants more men, and of course, given money isn't an issue. 456 happily pays. In fact, he even offers out $1 billion reward for finding him, which is ironic given how Ji-hun is using money and this way was given what he went through. The thugs went back to work and launched a huge operation, getting everybody they can on it to find the recruiter. The search eventually bears fruit, and both Mr. Kim and Woo Seok find him at the subway station playing Deodakshi. Mr. Kim himself finds him on the other side of the subway after playing after gaining a location, they follow him. The recruiters show up at a homeless park where he guides numerous people into choosing between a bread roll or a lottery ticket. Most pick the ticket, and as a result, he destroys the remaining rolls in front of them. While Ji-hun races to the station, he's pulled over by traffic cops who issue him a ticket. And one of the officers, is Jun-ho, the detective. Of course, they crossed paths in the games and soon finds the motel Ji-hun is staying at. Meanwhile, Ji-hun finds Mr. Kim and Woo Seok knocked out in the alleyway, thanks to the recruiter getting the jump on them. Turns out he has them both tied up and kept hostage. Unfortunately, he plays a sadistic game of rock, paper, scissors -1. The loser, they have to play Russian roulette, and unfortunately, Mr. Kim ends up killed as a result. Woo Seok spills all, which brings the recruiter over to Jin-hun's pad. Jin-hun, 456, wants to send a message to his superiors, believing that the recruiter does not understand, nor would he. Given that what he's been through, however, the recruiter reveals his story, including how he was faced with an impossible choice, his family or his job. The recruiter had to kill his own dad, but 456 is having none of it. He bitterly retorts how horrific the games were. The recruiter smirks and decides they should play a game, Russian roulette. However, neither are aware that 456 is outside. No, Jun-ho is outside. Still, the games take place, and eventually the recruiter loses. He smirks before shooting himself. Season 1, Episode 2 of Squid Games begins at the motel with a gunshot booming outside too. Ji-hun grabs the card from the recruiter's jacket just as Jun-ho shows up and sees what happens. Woo Seok shows up too and rants about loyalty, while Ji-hun checks over the card he has given. On the paper are the words Club HDH and the time October 31st at midnight, Halloween. Jun-ho and Ji-hun catch up and exchange information, while Ji-hun learning about the captain and the hierarchy of the games. Jun-ho, however, wants them to work together and find the VIPs. With these two and Woo Seok joining together, Ji-hun intends to use the money to recruit an army and a ton of weapons to try to fight back once and for all. Here we also see few other newcomers sprinkled into the story. One comes a form of Kang Neil. She's recently escaped from North Korea and is desperate to find her 1-year-old who is still left behind in her home country. She actually shot her superior and left. But the ride is dangerous, in which explains why she's here alone. The little money she has gained from working as an amusement park mascot, including sleeping in the parking lot, she has no home, seems to be futile. So, of course, she's the perfect candidate for the games. Kang Neil quits her job at the amusement park, but she is moved by a sick kid called Na Yeon. Being rushed to the hospital outside, she follows them to the ward, where she dropped off her knitted hat and holds her hand for a bit before leaving. As for Junho, he speaks to his mom, who's torn up over In-ho's disappearance. The ripple of resentment running through her, given In-ho actually gave up once one of his kidneys to save Junho, the detective. As a result, his mom indirectly blames him for it. Jihan gets a replacement tooth fixed with a tracker in the midst of it, and recruits some gangsters to join Hoo Seok, determined to head to the club on Halloween and all guns blazing. After struggling to talk to his daughter on the phone, Jihan, 456, fronts the group as they head in. However, Junho, the detective, is waiting outside and notices some of the masked men with pink jumpsuits at the club. Unfortunately, the packed club is a perfect place for an ambush. And after one of them tasers Hoo Seok knocks him out, Jihan is brought up to a limo outside, aka Jihan is 456, is brought up to a limo outside where the front man speaks through a gold piggy bank speaker. Jihan demands he stops the game completely, but of course his words fall on deaf ears. The front man simply sees it all as trash eliminating trash, quote unquote. Unbeknownst to Jihan, 456, the front man is actually in the front seats of the limo. Johan doesn't get there in time, but he does have the men on him. Junho is the detective. However, those in charge of the game are not stupid and have snipers up on the rooftops. They fire numerous shots at the cars and stop them, and of course the police are nowhere to be found. Realizing they only have one option left, Jihan asks to be put back in the games again. Speaking of the games, remember No-Yul? Turns out she's been recruited not as a player, but she's actually been a foot soldiers, as one of the foot soldiers. As she dons an outfit from one of the 3 big trucks in an abandoned lot and prepares to play the games. I am sorry I can't do all of the reviews as the first 2 episodes, as the full reviews for the first 2 episodes have already taken me 10 minutes. I won't be able to do all of them, but I will definitely start doing them every day. I'll be telling you everything about episode 3 and 4 of Squid Game Season 2. It's Squid Game Season 2, Episode 3 starts down at the dock. Hoo Seok, Junho, and a bunch of other men load up to a familiar boat with a fisherman that Junho knows. By the way, Junho is the detective. And using Jihan's tracker, who is 456, and they put a tracker in him, and he went to the games. Follow him before it's too late. Jihan awakens back in the game again, ready to play once more. He's back with his familiar 456 jumpsuit, and a whole new group of players are here. There's a bunch of different individuals here, including many that are in a lot of debt, and a YouTuber known for scamming people called Myungji. Most of these people have varying degrees of debts, with some going all the way up to 10 billion won. The familiar rules are read out with people, and there's some infighting, especially between a guy called Young-sik and his mom, and a bunch of players who are unhappy with Myung-ji as they lost money following his advice. Among them are Namgyu and a purple-haired rapper called Thanos. All the players do eventually sign their contracts, but already you can see where the ripples of hostility here. This time, as the games begin, we already know what's going to happen. Ji-hun, 456, is the only one who's wise to what's happening, refusing to smile and grimly following everyone as they head up. Only, there is a problem. One of Ji-hun's old friends, Junbei, happens to be in the game. Let's hope this isn't a repeat of Sung-hoon incident last time. Anyway, Ji-hun demands Junbei to stay close to him and pay attention to everything if he wants to stay alive. Unfortunately, there's a problem. It turns out Ji-hun's tracker, 456, where he hidden his tooth, has been removed, which sends Jun-ho and the goons off in a different direction and not to the same island this game is taking place on. As a result, Ji-hun tries to rally the troops to play properly this time, with 456 working as a cheerleader. He manages to keep everybody alive for a while. Those who move are instantly killed, and it sets off a chain reaction just like before. By the way, Red Green Knight is the first game. While with Ji-hun organizing traffic for those remaining, they mostly manage to keep things together, but No-yul, who is now working as a sniper, which is person that we have previously seen, by the way, also known as number 11, who is now working as a sniper, watches everything that's much closer. A lot of players end up killed though, and Thanos the rapper sabotaged several individuals. Ji-hun saves player 444 while he's down and out, bleeding. Number 11 breaks the rules and kills him while he has crossed the line. However, she also spares an individual, which happens to be Na Yeon's father, the person with that number 11 has previously seen outside of the games. So yeah, he happens to be a part of the games too, and presumably looking to fund his daughter's medical bill. Either way, it's clear the stakes are much higher this time. Although Ji-hun, 456, helped the others survive, it is unclear exactly how long he can keep this tirade going. And unfortunately, hope isn't on the other way either. 456 decides to orchestrate the vote and try to stop the games, but of course the manager and the other soldiers drop the amount of prize money first to sway the masses with the promise of blood money. Jeong-dae, the man 10 billion won debt, is not happy with when 456 tries to rally the people to stop. However, it is not the adverse effect as they believe. He can help with tips to get out of other games. Unfortunately, 456 Ji-hun is held up at gunpoint as the remaining players continue to vote. It goes right down to the wire with player 001 choosing to stay in the games, and guess who 001 is? Yup, it is the frontman, In-ho himself, playing the games in every bit of part, just like the old man was in Season 1. Episode 4 of Squid Game Season 2 begins grimly with the workers carting the coffins of the deceased over for the organ harvesting, and subsequently the incinerator. Meanwhile, all the players enjoy the food and drink given out except for 456. Ji-hun, He knows he's back in the games again properly and may not be so lucky this time. Well, 001 playing the mole, he approaches 456 and asks for his help. Ji-hun brings up the games played before, with the next obviously being Dalgona. Ji-hun promises to tell everybody what he knows if the game is picked, but of course In-ho is going to disrupt this, as he's the front man. 456, Ji-hun, doesn't even realize that he's talking to the front man, and the pair trade ideologies about the game's morality of pressing the X or the O to continue or stop the games. Alongside 456, there's Kandeo, who is used to be in the Marines. Funnily enough, so was Junbei too, and the pair have a little comedic moment together. Upping the stakes, young six mom, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, has helped a number of women given birth in the past, and as she knows one of the women, Jun-hee, is actually pregnant. We saw her earlier in the show leave her meeting with the doctor after getting nowhere with her deadbeat partner. Meanwhile, Thanos and Namgyu continue to have Myungji grief after losing their fortune. In-ho breaks this up easily, dispatching both kids and rallying the people to his side. In the middle of the night, In-ho and Ji-hun, 456, talk. In-ho brings up his story around how his wife is sick. By the way, In-ho, if you guys don't remember, is the front man. How his wife is sick and the tragic spiral that ensued him from there. In-ho claims the games are his last chance, and while he understands what the money represents, he's desperate for all at the same order to help his wife and their child. Whether this story has any semblance of truth, or if it's a way to sway Ji-hun's conviction, is up for debate. Meanwhile, the organ harvesters are struggling to get the parts from the dead body, a lot of them deemed as unsavable because for some reason they have been shot numerous times. It would appear the workers also have a loose cannon, as they suspect No Yul, aka number 11. She defected to North Korea, and there's hostility toward them from the other soldiers. That night, No Yul is brought to the masked officer, at least that's what the subtitles call him. By the way, the masked officer is now being introduced. We have not seen him in season 1. He brings up how they've known each other for about 7 years, and he's unclear why she's defying him now. No Yul, number 11, obviously has her own agenda and keeps her cards close to her chest despite wanting to find her kid. She doesn't give anything up. Meanwhile, Jun-ho returns to the SEAL station and futilely asks for help. Of course, they need evidence, so he gets nowhere, and tries to find an alternate route to get help. Back in the games, Jun-hee speaks to Myungji, who happens to be the father of her child. By the way, Jun-hee is a pregnant woman, and Myungji is the father of her child. It seems everybody is more connected than we thought, and he's pretty shocked that she's going to keep her child. Their conversation is cut short, though, as the second game begins. This time, though, it's not Dalgana. Instead, the team is given this is a team game, and Ji-hun is joined in with In-ho, Dae-ho, and Junbei. They need one more person and somehow find another ex-Marine and Jun-hee. Six-legged pentathlon is a game where their legs are tied up together. Each member takes turn playing. The minigame is the 10-meter mark. If you win, the team can move on to the next game. There are 10 mini-games in total. After choosing which one they'll play, the games start. For those who first are studied by others, trying to work out which games to take longer and the best strategies to take. In the midst of this, they notice that one of the soldiers is actually actively shooting in one of the coffins. In the midst of this, after the first set of people die, the games look set to continue, and the different leaders rally up their respective teams as they best can. And, yeah, I guess that's it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I will also do a full review of Season 1, and once I manage to do all the episodes, which I only actually need 3 more, surprisingly, I will combine all of them and make like a complete review. Thank you all for watching, and thanks for blowing up my last video, or the first and second video. Have a great day. Today's video, I'll be telling you guys a perfect review and recap of episode 5, 6, and 7. So basically a recap of Season 2's ending. So let's just get on with it. Episode 5 of Squid Game Season 2. It begins with the next set of players continuing their mini-games. Wonju's team manages to progress with her working as a cheerleader and de facto leader for the Misfits. Each of the players use their own motivation and reasons to progress, and despite the spinning top game looking like a lost cause, they manage to win. The games eventually continue all the way through to the final teams, which happen to be Jihan and a bunch of randoms. By the way, Jihan, I'm pretty sure he's 456. There, 456 from the first season. I wonder who will progress. Anyway, the group eventually reconvene back to the dorms. Where we get some dialogue over how Hyunju is still pre-op and needs money to help fund this. At the same time, Thanos intends to keep his tight-knit team in check and work out how to get the upper hand against the others. By the way, Thanos, he's the guy that wants to stay. There's votings that happen all the way throughout the games, and him and all the other O's, or circles, by the way, circles indicate yes as they want to play, and the X's indicate no as they don't want to play. Meanwhile, No-Yul is grabbed by a couple soldiers and thrown into her room by these crooks. No-Yul does her best to fight them off, but they threaten her with a knife, calling her Kami and forcing her into submission. Back to the games, and with 110 players down and many surviving, those left behind are split into camps of those who are grateful and those who are disappointed that more haven't passed to raise the prize funds. Well, the teams are once given more to vote or stay to go. Starting with player 001 and working their way up to 456. Among those who choose to stay are Minho, who's forced by his teammates, Junpei, who explain he has big debts, Young-sik, extra depths due to loan sharks, and Hyunju. Jiande unfortunately manages to push people into that shanty in one more game, and it becomes pretty unanimous from here on that another game will take place. There are ripples of disgust or distrust and disappointment among the many players after the inevitable result, as everybody is split into different camps with Circle and X, yes and no. In the midst of this, Myung-ji is reprimanded for choosing to quit by Thanos and his thugs. Jihan, 456, though knows what's next and prepares for the nighttime strikes. Once again, it's lights out. He tells his teammates they needed to take turns to keep watch. By the way, lights out is basically just like a free-for-all, I guess you would say. Funny enough, Young-sik's mom actually has the blade she's hidden in her hair, which could come in handy later down the line. In the morning, the third game is about to begin. As it does, Jun-hee launches his latest mission to shed out and tries to find Jihan. By the way, Jun-hee is the detective and he's trying to find Jihan. And this coincidentally nicely with No-Yul sporting a nasty cut across their cheek, prepared to head out with the other soldiers for the next game. No-Yul is number 11, for some of you that cannot remember. So what is the third game? Well, it's something called Mingle. The rules of this game include the middle platform rotating, and when they hear a number, they have to form groups of that size and go into the rooms. The door will close within 30 seconds, so there's not much of a strategy, to be honest. Jihan, Inho, and the other de facto leaders all tell their respective teams they need to stay strong and not panic as the game begins. On to episode 6 of Squid Game Season 2 begins with the next game taking place, and it is, as predicted, absolute chaos. 4:56, Jihan watches numerous others killed from each door. Completely powerless, however, even those behind the doors with the wrong numbers inside are also killed too. So there's no place to hide. The room is covered in blood as the game goes right down to the wire. Young-sik and his mom are separated when they need to pick 3 to go inside the rooms. Inho works up to rile up Young-sik's mom, claiming that she's been abandoned, but she refuses to believe this. The others still haven't caught on to what he's doing yet. Young-sik does survive, but is definitely showing where the dividing lines are. Young-mi ends up killed, which shocks Young-ju, who's racked with pain. However, despite Myung-ji shutting the door and locking it, he did save everyone inside the room, so the morals of that are conflicted. It's clear that the idea here is to go down to 100 players, and that they're doing it going until they reach that point. The final round is absolutely harrowing. All of these individuals we've followed race for the doors. So who ends up killed? Well, a whole bunch of individuals, but Inho ends up killing someone inside the room with him, and Junbei, so they survive. By the way, Inho was actually the front man, my mistake. As the numbers get dangerously low, Junho flies a drone over the island searching for clues. Junho is actually the detective. He's flying a drone over the island searching for clues of the Squid Game HQ, known as the Squid Game Island also. However, he does find a strange trapdoor that could well be a crucial clue, so he decides to send the ground troops in to look with more detail. With the result team in place, they head to the trapdoor, but it's rigged with a booby trap, and they end up blowing sky high. With so many traps across the island, it doesn't pose as an operation, and the groups contemplate the next move. The group ain't well truly split between those who want to stay and those who want to leave. Cutting back to the actual Squid Game, the group are well truly split between those who want to stay and those who want to leave, and they even end up with the opposite sides of the dorms. This, of course, means they could be big hostilities that night, with the teams trying to sabotage the others into submission. In the middle of this, Thanos and Nam Jiu end up confronting Minsu and bully him into trying to change his vote. Myung-ji shows in the bathroom, and a big fight breaks out between them. Thanos chokes out Minsu, but the latter gets the last laugh here. He happens to be holding a fork and then stabs Thanos in the neck twice. The same fork that Jihan had with his food, perhaps. On to the final episode, episode 7 of Squid Game Season 2, starts this finale with Thanos stabbed in the neck with a fork. Blood gushes over Mianji's face, and unfortunately, this results in several different individuals killed with that very same fork in the bathroom. Soldiers stand outside the door and do absolutely nothing to stop it. Eventually, 5 people lose their lives in the brawl. These deaths causes an even bigger rift between the two teams when they arrive back at the dorms. Time is very much of the essence here, and while luck seems to be on Jihan and the other Xers on the X's sides, or the no sides, people that want to not play, it remains to see if anybody changes their minds or not in the upcoming vote, if they can even make it that far, of course. So, what happens with Junho? Let's get this off first. Junho, as we know, is the detective. Meanwhile, at sea, the captain is found messing about with the drone, and unfortunately he stabs the drone pilot 7 times, then throws him overboard to hide the evidence. It turns out that the captain is actually crooked and working against them, and is working for the games. But for now, Hoo-seok and Junho are none the wiser to what's going on. Back to the game. No-Yul is seduced, and the officer learns that she's playing by their rules, at least for now anyway. No-Yul is on number 11, by the way. The soldiers are briefed and told to get ready, as there is about to be a special game underway shortly. Of course, there is going to be an assault as soon as it's dark. But Jihan believes they should direct the anger towards at those upper levels and in control rather of those fellow contestants. Of course, the guys are unaware that Inho is working against them. By the way, Inho is the front man. As soon as it hits lights out, Jihan organizes the troops to get out of the bed and not attract any attention of themselves. Of course, all the O team stab as many of their enemies, aka the X's, aka the people that do not want to continue the games, as possible, causing chaos. Jihan decides to take a small sacrifice in order to end the game, not telling everybody to get under the bunks and try and keep their plan a surprise. In the wake of this drama, Minsu tries to kill Namjiu, but he misses after throwing a glass off the top bunk, and eventually the guards head in to settle the situation. This is precisely what Jihan is waiting for. With the attention diverted, the group works together to take control of the soldiers, pouncing them and taking on them and taking the guns for themselves. A shootout ensures in the dorms, and the soldiers are eventually forced to flee. This is just so the guards can get reinforcements, though, and after shooting out the cameras and seizing as much ammo and guns as they can, the group attempts to recruit more reinforcements to storm the control room and stop the game. A lot of people are reluctant, but Junbei manages to help sway some of them onto their side. They have radios, and with soldier help and with a soldier held captive, they got out their dorms and prepared to head for the HQ. Of course, they came under heavy fire their entire way on the hallway, and their hostage ends up being killed too. The shootout was intense as it takes place in the hallway, but Jihan grabs the mask. The mask needed to pass security and goes on ahead away from the other soldiers. Junbei and Jihan manage to pass security and make it into the management area, working together
to divert attention and snatching up ammunition, I can't talk today, from any guards they kill on their way. While they fight up to the control room, Daeho heads back from the group to try to find some more magazines as the group running dangerously low on ammunition. Despite getting the magazines back, Jihan hands over his clip to Inho, who catches up and believes there's a way out. Unfortunately, Daeho has a change of his heart and abandons his comrades in all chaos. Unwilling to go through with this anymore, Yeonju susses something is up and decides to head back to the dorms as well. Back at the purple hallway, like the main area, the groups fight and Inho inevitably makes his moves, betraying the rebels and shooting them in the back. He radios through to Jihan and claims they have been killed, but of course the reality is very different. Jihan falls for it once more, believing his friend is dead, before he fires one more shot and switches the radio channel. Next, Inho radios through to the soldiers, telling them to wrap it up, quote unquote. Soldiers storm the dorms where Hyunji is encouraged by Young Sik's mom not to move and get involved. She complies, while the rest of the rebels find themselves killed and those who surrender. In the wake of overwhelming odds, the expectation here is on course, Jihan given by the massive plot armor. The frontman faces Jihan and kills Junbei right in front of him as he screams to the heavens. By the way, Junbei is like one of the main characters besides the frontman. Literally Jihan's best friend, even before the first season. Yeah, Junbei is pretty important. And then the frontman faces Jihan and kills Junbei right in front of him as he screams to the heavens. The season comes to an end. However, there is a mid-credit sequence, though, showing the players left facing a new game, which appears to be a variation of red light, green light. However, there is 2 dolls this time. Some people believe that this might be a trolley problem. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Have a great day.